Hello traders, Damien here. Today we're going to be discussing supply and demand and support and resistance. I want you guys to keep in mind that these are areas of imbalances in price where the buyers may find price too expensive or too cheap to keep buying or selling, and the other side generally comes in and takes over. The overall global expectations for areas of supply and demand or support and resistance on the shorter term is for these areas to hold. That is the general expectation. We expect these areas to hold unless price approaches it with a lot of strength. Okay. We also have to take into consideration the expectation. Do we expect price to make that new structure high or new structure low? Does this expectation put price beyond that level of supply and demand or support and resistance? Okay. I want you to also keep in mind these are zones. Okay, most people have a tendency to draw lines for areas of support and resistance, and price, it's hard to hold price to a specific line, but when we start holding price to a specific area or zone, it becomes a much more powerful area that not only you can visualize, but you can see how price behaves in that zone to see if there is a transition from one side of buying or selling to the other side of buying or selling. If there's rotation in the orders and in price to suggest that price is going to find that support or resistance, or just ignore it. Okay, so we covered a couple of things already, that supply and demand occur over larger areas of time, and support and resistance happen more on the immediate or short-term scale, if you would. Okay, we're going to see how both of these play out, and we're going to see how we can properly identify them in the price action. So we're going to not waste any more time, and we're going to go ahead and go back to a random place as we always do, and we see that price okay. So what do we see? We see an area here where price has had difficulty getting past these highs. Okay, and what I like to do is I like to take clear turning points where price has had difficulty and identify those areas, so I don't force myself to draw one line here across. I could draw one line here across. Do that right now so you can see. I can draw one line here. I can draw one line here. I can draw one line around here. I can draw another line around there. It doesn't really matter how you choose to draw this, whether it's lines or rectangles, but understand that these are not lines, and that holding price to a specific line is not something that's a very good thing, a very good practice to carry out. So now that we've identified that price has gone to this area and rejected it sharply, and has gone to this area and rejected it sharply, and here we had a minor reaction to it, now we have to start to identify this zone as a zone where prices have been too expensive for the buyers to keep buying, and therefore it creates an area of too much supply and not enough demand. Okay, now when you look at price and when you look at areas to identify them, I want to identify clear highs and lows where price has reacted violently off of that area. We see that we have an area here, and we have an area here. We also have an area here, right here. So this level right here becomes important for price reaction. Okay, so I am going to identify another area right here, and I have to include what? This low, right? This low becomes significantly important, right? So now we have identified, and let's pretend that price is here. So now we have entrapped price above and below, and we have a framework, okay, for which price to operate within. And we know that price, every time it's gone to this area, has found pretty good support. And we also understand that once price got up here in this area, prices found what? Significant resistance. It doesn't take any kind of skill to see this. All it takes for you to have two eyeballs and a little sense of reason to understand that price has found support in this area and resistance this. Now, within the short term here, we have what appears to be a bullish market with some price breakdown. We've made a new structure high here, new structure low here. Expectation was for the market to push lower. Expectations failed. Price made a weak new structure high. We would expect a deep correction, with which we have. And now our expectation of a new structure high is becoming weak as we're having a bunch of complex corrections. Price is unable to really get past this area here. And we do have an increase of momentum to the downside in general. So we have to understand that our expectation of that new structure high has severely weakened, as we still see some pretty good selling strength, and the bulls are not giving up the fight, are trying to get back to this area. What is our expectation at hand? Our expectation is for price, no matter how weak it appears to be, our expectation is for a new structure high. Okay, is that new structure high a realistic probability? Well, we have order flow going against us at the moment. We have a really strong area of supply up here that says price has not been able to get past this level. So our expectation, since price is approaching this area with weakness, generalized weakness, I'm not talking about one candle or two candles, but price is generally approaching this area with a degree of weakness, we expect this area to hold, okay, and for price to try to get bearish again. So moving price forward, okay, and our process should not change. We're always analyzing, seeing that price is making new structure highs, higher lows, new structure highs, deeper. We see breakdown here in this order flow, okay, and on a short term, what are we seeing? What did price react sharply to? Okay, well, it's close to this area, so we don't have to get too crazy, but let's say that this area was very far away. We can also identify another small area here, clear high, that price is struggling to get past. On the downside, we see that we have also a clear area where price is finding what? Support. So within this higher supply and demand area, we have smaller support and resistance areas, support and resistance, where price is range bound within the confines of this swing. Okay, what is the expectation? The expectation at the moment is for price to make a new structure high. Price has made a higher low. Price has made a lower high, has not been able to make that break below this. Okay, but our expectation is for price to make a weak new structure high. That is weakening severely, but that is our expectation. And as long as price continues to make new structure highs and higher lows, then the short-term order flow is aligning itself with the longer-term expectation. And those are good things, okay? Okay, so what we're doing is we've already predetermined that this area should hold based on the weakness that we see here. Now price is trying to pick up some strength here, but price has failed to make a new structure high in the short term here, and price has retested those lows. So what is our short-term expectation? Our short-term expectation is not for price to make a new structure high. Okay, and although price does that with more strength here, price has tested this area, has found some rejection. And price has come back to test the lows again and make another short-term new structure low. So price got past our short-term expectation only by a little bit, but has reacted pretty much the way we would expect. And we still have our expectation of price getting into this area, which price is now doing. Okay, now if you're a counter trend trader, or you have to want to try to capitalize on all this weakness and want to get short, this is the area where you will be looking for the short. Even though you're expecting a weak new structure high, you're expecting this area to hold. So now the price is in here and it's showing you signs of rejection, this is the area where you may want to get aggressive and get short here and put your stops above that structure. Okay, because overall, look at the momentum that we had here, and look at the momentum that we have here. Completely flat and unable to really get up there. Okay, look at the momentum that we had in the shorter term stuff. This is the highest point. This is the lowest point to the highest point. Not much better. Okay, so we still have our expectation. We still understand that the market should make a new structure high. The order flow, the price action, and our areas of supply and demand and support and resistance are telling us that that possibility is very weak. Nonetheless, remember that our structure analysis is at least 70% accurate, so you must take caution. Understand that if you're taking a counter trend trade here, which makes all the sense in the world, you still have that element of being only 30% correct. So nonetheless, we expect this area to hold and for price to continue moving downward. And as we can see, price did exactly as we expected it to do. Why? Because we are informed traders, because we understand that these levels and these areas have a major impact on decision making. We know that a lot of decisions are being made here to take profit, to sell, all kinds of decisions. We also know that decisions to buy and to take profit are occurring down here. It's no surprise that when price got back to this area, it tried to find support again. What is our expectation? Our expectation now becomes what? Since price made a new structure low, our expectation is for price to not get past this area here. Why? Because we have resistance, a little bit of support, resistance, 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 a little bit of support, resistance, resistance. So we have a fairly good understanding that we would expect price to try to come back near these highs because we are in a range, but in this general area, as we are expecting a lower high deeper, okay, we are finding the heaviest structure area in this general zone to be enforced on a deeper correction standpoint. So we would expect price to come into this general area and then roll over and try to test this zone. I hope that makes sense to you. It is important that you do realize that. Okay, and we understand that we're still in an area of support here and an area of resistance here. But price has spoken to us. It's made a weak new structure high in an area of longer term supply, which is stronger than the shorter term stuff, and has rejected it strongly as we expected, and has broken all these levels of structure to the downside. Our expectation, okay, from a long-term perspective, we're still expecting a new structure high. However, price is reacting in the short term the way we would expect, and our expectations of that new structure high are just getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And this is where you could decide, if you didn't get in here, to take something, okay, against the order flow into the downside, as now your expectations just keep getting weaker and weaker and weaker for that new structure high. Okay, so I told you we should test this area again. We're here. Price rejected it sharply, coming down. We would expect price to test this general zone down here. Price is still struggling to stay bullish, still trying to find support off of this area. Price has made another weak new structure low. I don't want to talk too much about the expectations and about trade identification. I just want you to see how powerful these zones are when you learn to identify them properly and process them into the price action. Okay, no surprise, price is going to try to find support in this area. It already has, but price is what? Spoken again. Okay, price is accelerating to the downside. Projection is increasing. So now we would expect what? This area to try to start acting more like resistance versus support. Can you see that? Price has broken past this area, found a little bit of support at the lower extremes of this, but it's happening on what? Stronger projection to the downside, stronger momentum. We don't expect price to get back near these highs. And I know it looks like it wants to, and it may very well do that, but that's not our expectation. And price comes on down and does exactly what we said it was going to do when it was where? Back here. How powerful is that? When you use your structure analysis, you use a short-term order flow and the expectations to help you come up with an understanding as to where price should turn based on structure, based on supply and demand, and also understand where it's likely to go next. It's extremely powerful. Now I don't draw these on my chart. I can visualize them and understand what levels I need to pay attention to, but it also coincides very nicely with harmonic expectations. As price often, well, however you want to draw it, it's fine. That's one way. But we know that when price is going to get into this general area, it's going to do what? Have a tendency to find support. What kind of support is it likely to find? We just had what? Even more acceleration, even more projection. Okay, if price gets down here to complete this, okay, we don't expect a very strong pullback at all, and we come here and look left and we see that we have a little bit of structure here and we have this area here. We wouldn't expect price to have such a deep correction and for price to make a bigger dent into this area, because our expectation is what? Lower high, new structure low, weak correction. Okay, price has now made what? A complex correction. Where should price come back to? Well, we have this area. Should price get past that? No. That's not the expectation. The expectation is for price to make a new structure low. Okay, and we see price came back right to where we said it would likely to go on a complex correction. And then where is price likely to go? Did I change my expectation? Say no, we're expecting a new structure high now? No. We have to understand the framework and the confines of what should keep price under control and in line with the expectations at hand. When there's conflict between expectation and supply and demand, then we need to be on the sidelines and wait for price to do what? Speak to us. Okay? Our expectation is nothing more than a new structure low, and I told you when price was here that our price should make a deeper impact on this area. It should get deeper. Why? Because the order flow was strengthening in that direction. Should this area hold? We still expect it to hold. Okay? But that doesn't mean that we're going to get a support here area that is going to make overall new structure highs. Okay, right now this market is strengthening to the downside, and it will be unreasonable to expect what? That the market is going to change directions, that the market is going to reverse. Is it a good area to look for a long? No, it's a weak area to look for a long, even though it's an area of demand and should be stronger than short-term support. Price is accelerating against you, so this area is what? In danger right now. Being attacked with a lot of strength. Okay? So you want to take caution here and not look to get into anything long here. I also don't want to get into anything short that's going to test this area unless I have what? Enough room to protect my trade to get to a break-even point. Okay? So we would expect, let me take this area a little bit further out so you can see. Now we're in the zone, and we can see that price reacted to this area. Okay. Okay, price reacted what? As we would expect, right? In the zone. Okay, but what did I tell you? Momentum is strong, projection is strong, depth is weak. Okay, even though it looks, it's depth. Look at this one. Look at this one, less. Look at it. Strong projection. We don't expect price to... Now we expect what? This area to try to act as resistance, right? Because we have some pretty strong price reactionary points up here where price just found some pretty strong support. Okay? But we would expect this area now to do what? To fail. to come down. That doesn't mean that we can't get a deep correction here and position ourselves for short, but our expectation is for the area to fail. And what does it do? It fails. Okay, so now price comes down, broke through a little bit, okay, came down, it's having a deeper than expected correction, okay, but our expectation is for price to do what? Now price has failed on the reattempt to make a new structure low, okay, it's likely going to break this and make a new structure high, okay, and now we may start to see the probability of something more meaningful as far as a correction. But this is the main high, this is the main low. We still expect what? This area to be respected, and for price to do what? Retest those lows. We're in a complex corrective process here. I haven't moved my mouse. You saw where it is. And why did I choose this area? Look to the left. Look at the rectangle. Look at the structure. Look how price has reacted to this level of 16,183 very strongly. What would I expect when price retests that area? For price to react the same way. And what is the expectation? The expectation is for price to what? Produce a new structure low. Now, am I concerned that price is dancing around here and getting deeper and deeper into this correction? Yes, I am concerned about that. But should I need to change my expectation? Do I need to change anything? No, price is still testing these areas of strong price point, and now we're seeing some of that short-term selling impulse getting stronger and stronger, and will do what? Break structure to the downside. Let's pass things on forward here. Okay, and price continues on and makes a new structure low as expected. Now I want you guys to see the unbelievable power when you combine your expectation, when you combine order flow analysis, and you throw in supply and demand, support and resistance, how unbelievably strong it becomes. And I have told you guys, without the benefit of hindsight, in a random place, exactly where price was going to go to, where it was going to turn, and what areas should hold and which areas should fail. Tremendous power, okay, when you understand order flow, structure analysis, and supply and demand, support and resistance. Okay, so I know it's been posted in the past, accumulation, distribution, manipulation, it's all hogwash. It doesn't matter. Okay, understand how price has reacted to these levels, identify the proper zones with a rectangle and not a line, okay, and have an expectation for price to follow. It will follow it. You will also understand when an expectation is weakening and when an expectation is likely to fail, like we determined up here when we said this area was going to hold. How we determined that this area was going to hold, however, it was still going to produce a correction here into this area and then a break. We anticipated the break of this area. We said that we were going to find some short-term support in this area, that it was going to come back to this area, and we determined every single one of these critical turning points, and we didn't let the short-term order flow disrupt our expectation and what the market should do. Okay, now we use the short-term order flow to help us understand what? Weakness, strength, important. That helps us understand whether these areas are going to what? Hold or fail. As we saw price acceleration into this area, we saw the pullback that we were expecting, and then in here also I didn't change my expectation. I knew the price needed to break this clear high. We knew we were in a complex correction. We knew that we were supposed to test this area. It's a strong area, so a lot of people are going to buy there. It's going to push price a little higher. But what is the expectation? What is realistic and unrealistic for price to achieve? Okay, I know this video is not that long. If I need to revisit this, I will. I think you get the idea and the point, and how you don't need to put a whole lot of thought into this and a whole lot of processing behind it as to who's buying, who's selling. Are they accumulating orders here? Are they trying to stop hunt? Are they trying to do this? Are they trying to do that? None of that stuff matters. Okay, the only thing that matters is how did price react to this area? How did price react to this zone? Do I have a good zone identified? Okay, If you're picking points or areas where price had a dramatic response to that zone, then that is a very good support or resistance or supply and demand. Understand the difference between support and demand, and understand the difference between supply and demand and support and resistance. Supply and demand is longer term, such as this, occurs over periods of days, weeks, months. Okay, and then understand that the supply, support, and resistance are more short-term, intraday or intra-swing areas. I don't worry about these longer-term areas anymore because I'm not trading longer-term. Okay, I worry more about the expectations at hand since they play out so much, and then I use the short-term supply and demand to identify my entries, support and resistance to identify my entries. That's what I've been doing for a while now. It wouldn't hurt you guys to do it like this, to understand the bigger picture, and if you're close to the bigger picture, to not take that chance. I can see that this area is going to fail without identifying it, since I saw the weakness in the overall climb. I saw the loss of momentum, so I can sort of see these things without drawing them out sometimes. So when you look at my charts and I post a live trade, you may not see any of these rectangles because I can visualize them. And I also use my cursor and I put it there as the area that I'm looking for price to get to, and so I don't have to spend a whole lot of time cluttering up my charts with a bunch of rectangles. And I want you guys to use this tool responsibly and not end up with a bunch of levels identified where you're just going to drive yourself crazy. Pick one or two above or below current price, maybe one long term on the top and on the bottom, and shorter term on the top and the bottom. Okay, then work off of your structure analysis, your order flow analysis. Okay, and moving forward, we're going to get into that bar by bar analysis that's going to help us pinpoint those entrances and time our entrances the best way possible. Okay, so that is all that I have for right now. I'm going to start drawing some of these rectangles again in my live trading examples, and I'm going to be posting more of in the thread so that you guys can see the relationship between the supply and demand or support and resistance area and the overall expectations with the order flow, so you can understand how I'm drawing them. I want you guys to draw them based on clear, decisive, strong. It took a lot of money to bring price here, and it took even more money to get price away from here. Okay, same thing here. It took a whole lot of selling to achieve this, and even more buying to stop it and reverse it in this way. Critical area, critical area, critical area. Okay, critical area, critical area. Okay, and as price comes back to and from these zones, they become even more powerful and important. Okay, so that's all that I have. This is a short video, and if I need to make another one during the week on this in terms of entries and stuff like that, I will. I understand that, I didn't really talk about that here, but it's important to understand what's important here, and it's not the entry, it's identifying where price is likely to pause, reverse, or continue on, because these areas, okay, are areas that price has respected repeatedly. So it's in our best interest to understand where these areas are, not necessarily what they mean. Doesn't matter what they mean. We just want to identify where they are, put them on our radar, so when price gets there, we can have an expectation as to what price should do, and we understand that we should either consider taking a trade there or passing it up because the area is weak and is likely to fail. That is the takeaway from this. Don't put too much thought into it. It's really simple. Like everything that we do, we keep it simple. Probably the most complicated part is the order flow analysis, because it's that important. So that's basically it. That's all I have, guys. Take care and enjoy this process. I hope you are. I'm having fun. I'm seeing a lot of great trading. I'm seeing a lot of transitions already from not being profitable to consistently profitable. Makes me really happy, and it makes me feel like I'm not wasting my time, and just a lot of good things. Take care.